Will future generations squander what you've spent your lifetime building? It's a common known fact that 90% of wealthy families lose their money, their wealth, after 3 generations of existence. It's challenging enough that the cost of raising your children and heir, they say it's about $250,000 today, up until they're 18 years old. Not even counting college, okay? So imagine depending on what school they go to, et cetera. But that you can kind of control, the lifestyle that you lead them. But what happens after? There's this whole charitable giving is great, but what happens when you give it to your heirs and with the unfortunate circumstance that potentially 90% of it will lose all of it, your heirs. So there's some not commonly known behaviors and areas that we can work on, Jason, to try to minimize the wastefulness of that multi-generational squandering of money. So of those, there's basically 4 areas that we want to touch on today. 1 is modeling, okay? 2 is financial education. 3 is communication, and 4 is an estate plan. So Jason, let's start with the first one. Talk to us about modeling.
Yeah. From a modeling perspective, I don't know who says this quote, but it's always stuck with me, which is more is caught than taught, which means your kids will become kind of more of what they see in you and kind of learn from that way as opposed to what you tell them. So it's super important that you model good stewardship, good financial behavior. If you are in the scarcity mindset with your money and you say, it's not in the budget, you can't have this, you can't have that, then your kids are going to grow up that way. Or if you're just a free willy spender on everything and you never do a budget and you're always struggling with money, your kids are going to see that and they're going to learn by watching you in that way. So how you instruct them is super important, but how you do it by living out your actual life. So, it's super important that we teach them, by them watching us doing budgets and saving and giving, you want to instill that sense of generosity. So there's a lot of things you can do from a modeling perspective that can really help your kids learn how to manage money well.
Yes, that's great, Jason. And then the second area after modeling is financial education. So talk to us about financial education, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's so many good resources from the perspective of teaching your kids, but also it's important that you as a parent know how to manage your money well too. So these courses may be good for your kids. They may also be good for yourself.
True.
So, one of them is really good and very well known is Financial Peace University by Dave Ramsey. Has an excellent course that teaches you A to Z about finances. Very practical, very easy to understand. It's a 9-week course. It's a phenomenal course. There's another organization called Compass. Howard Dayton's the founder of that one. He has all types of great courses in there that teach you about money and stewardship. And there's a really good course that you could do. It's actually more of a retreat with your family as your kids get older and as they're starting to become adults, and that you can teach them about generosity. It's called Journey of Generosity, an incredible retreat where you kind of learn all about just radical forms of generosity and how families using real life stories have just made such a big impact in this world with their wealth. That's a really great thing to do with your family. And there's some good books, too, that you could read or that you could have your kids read. Again, by Dave Ramsey, one called Total Money Makeovers, excellent. Howard Dayton has a phenomenal book called Your Money Counts. And then the last one, as parents get older and they're maybe in their 50s and 60s and have accumulated significant wealth, there's a great resource called Charting Your Legacy. That's really good. And you could even consider taking your kids through that, too.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to that book list. There's a book by Thomas Stanley that he did a survey of over 700 self-made millionaires. They didn't inherit money, okay? They were self-made. And what are the behaviors and patterns that help them become millionaires? It's called, The Millionaire Next Door.
That is a good one.
Okay, so these are all some resources, and we'll list them all down in the section below. But, these are great theoretical, courses that help at least start learning the principles of wealth and good personal finance. But there's also the area of the application, which is experiential learning. Okay, different people learn different ways. Some people learn by hearing, okay, but some people tactical, they're doing.
Sure.
Okay, so what are some things that we can start doing to actually have our children, our young adults start manifesting some of these principles that you read in the books and courses? And in these areas, it's tough because, as I grew up and became a little bit more financially successful, I wanted to give everything to my children, okay? But that's almost like a taboo because it doesn't allow them to learn those principles. Like, I can work out as much as I want, but that's not going to make my children stronger, right? So same thing here with financial principles. So, taking it from young age to older age, when you're young, we have this habit of giving children our allowance, okay? Well, no one gives me an allowance as an adult,
right?
Okay? So can we teach them to say, we have to work, the concept of working for money, okay? So maybe have chores for income. Now, be careful and you make a judgment call here. I didn't pay my children to make their bed. No, that's just part of being in the community.
Right.
Okay, those are responsibilities of being neat, and being a good member of society. But there's some things that, I may have to go pay someone to wash my car if I didn't want to do it. Well,
Right.
I'll pay you to do it if you want to do it. It's a choice.
Yeah.
Okay. But if I have to pay for this, I'll allow you to earn that money. Okay.
Right.
So
Or mow in
again,
the yard, those types of things.
those types of things. So encouraging chores for income. When they get a little older, truly encourage them to have a job, okay? And this is whether it's in high school or even college. And I used to be, I want my children to focus on education. I think, Jason, you've mentioned this in other videos we've mentioned, that actually statistics show that children or students who actually work through college actually have better GPAs.
That's absolutely right. In both cases, whether you're working as a child or whether you're working into college, what's really important on the teaching side of it too is to allow that child, once they get paid, to budget.
That's
right. And when they're really young, maybe you have 3 envelopes, give, save, spend.
Right.
So when they get paid for doing the work, and you only pay them if they do the work. So, but once they get paid, then they start to budget by putting it into the different envelopes. And you start to learn a little, you encourage them to put a little bit in each, but you start to learn their personality. My daughter was a big time saver and giver. My second son, spent everything. So you kind of learn those different personalities with money too. That's important.
That's exactly right. That's critical. But again, in light of that, once you start teaching them the importance of budgeting and actually naming their dollars to different buckets, okay, you let them apply those principles with things that they need.
That's
Okay,
right.
so for example, I remember with my sons, they needed cars as they were growing up and going away to college. Could I afford to buy them a car? Yes, I did not. Okay, that's a tough one because a lot of parents want to say, hey, I can do this, okay? But I wanted them to have skin in the game. And that was a tough lesson even for me, to see them have to actually work for it, okay?
Yep.
Maybe not buy the best car, okay? But it was a good enough car. Now, I will admit, I did a 401k match, okay? Up to a certain budget, I said, okay, if you put in this much, I'll match it up to this much. So, but I was interested to see them spreadsheet out how much they needed to earn by this time frame before they go to college so they can have this car, etc. So again, having them, learn the principles of having skin in the game, working for money, that's been huge, and they value their cars a lot more now.
Right.
Okay,
Yep.
so that's another example of something that we did, and then expose them to investing. Okay, I opened a brokerage account for them early so they can start seeing and reading some of these books of what it is to invest. Not that they're going to become investment gurus or should focus on that, but to start feeling comfortable with the language of investing and what that means, because a lot of life is, comfort with different areas. Okay, when you pursue a career, you go to school not because you're an expert by going to school, but you at least know the language.
That's right.
So exposing to these principles when they're younger, I know I didn't get exposed to it till I was already an adult, and that put me years behind in what could have been a more financially successful career, but that's okay. The younger they start being exposed to this, the quicker and better they'll accommodate to make it as part of their livelihood.
Right.
Okay, and then actually introducing them to professionals who do this. I've been a part of internships on both sides of the fence, okay, where interns have come to us and we've been able to model it, and we love doing this because it's our way to give back to the community and show young students, hey, look, here's what a career in finance looks like. Here's what investments looks like. You've done this. Here's what portfolios can look like, and thinking about picking mutual funds and stocks. So introduce your children to professionals who can speak this language, and the younger you do that, the better they are for it. So we've covered the first 2 areas that we can talk about as far as helping the next generation, which is modeling and financial education. A third one is an interesting one because it's actually how you deal and interact with your children, which is communication. It's interesting that I grew up in a household where we didn't talk about money. Okay, my parents didn't talk to me about money, and I don't think they were trying to hide anything from me. One, it was just not commonplace for your parents to talk to their children about money.
Right.
But it is a good thing. Okay, it should not be this taboo area. Obviously, it helps if you've got your personal finances in order to feel more comfortable doing that. But, it's good to have open discussion about your financial values. What are your financial goals? Even what are your mistakes that you've learned from, okay, and situations. Now, this is going to be age dependent. Obviously, you're not going to have the same conversation with a 5-year-old as you will with a 25-year-old, okay? But if you have that embedded in something that you want to be proactive about, you can start young and then slowly introduce them to different levels of conversation as they grow older, ultimately up to the age where they're old enough and you're having estate planning conversations with them. This is so important because if you want to teach the next generation, you have to have them learn and be exposed to your values, your goals, and the education that we just talked about, okay? But then making them actively engaged in these conversations so that they can say, this is not taboo. A lot of people will inherit money, and why does this happen when why does the money go away? Because they've never been exposed. They don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
This is a new concept to them, but it becomes, again, commonplace for them, part of who they are, part of their livelihood, their lifestyle, rather, then, okay, it's just a continuation of what you've already begun to do.
Right.
So feel free to enjoy, and there's different resources on this, again, where you can have great open communication with the next generation to really equip them to feel more comfortable implementing what you've desired for that generation to do.
That's right.
So as we go on from communication, I talked about the older generation. The last part is estate planning, Jason. You have to prepare your estate.
Absolutely.
So Jason, talk to us about that.
Yeah. And to link that with the communication piece, once you do form your estate, it would be good to communicate that to your heirs, because you don't want them to be surprised. You know, if anyone's going to have any issues, it's better to take care of that while you're alive instead of it causing a lot of family, difficulties after you pass away.
Right.
But in terms of creating your estate plan, we're not going to get into a very technical estate planning video right now, but just kind of give you some thoughts and some strategy to kind of some principles that could help you structure your estate plan. And so, first of all, think about an estate plan, and the way you do this is putting certain guardrails, how your heirs will get their money. It's especially important, not to allow your heirs that are younger to get too much money too soon. Because what you want them to have as a blessing to take care of them could be a curse if they got it. I know if I personally got a lot of money in my early 20s, in my college years, that would have been a problem. And you don't want that for your kids. So you can put certain parameters that, to stipulate, hey, we want to take care of education, we want to take care of, health and living needs, during kind of your college years, younger years, but you don't get any significant lump sums until later on. And I would consider, and this is what we've done with our personal estate, but you can put all types of other parameters like, I think one that's really important is they go through a stewardship course. Some of the educational courses that we talked about earlier, have them before they receive a tranche of the money, that they go through one of those courses, and they have to do that in order to receive that money. Because if they receive that money and they think it's all mine and I'm just free to do whatever, and they don't really understand the concept of stewardship, then it may be a curse to them. It may actually hurt them. But if they really truly understand stewardship, then they can be a manager of those resources.
And you set that up in your estate.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And so, this kind of decision is a very personal family decision, but just giving you some ideas. You could also think about they have to have some type of higher form of education before they get a tranche of the money. That they have, that they're actually working, that they have to be working to receive the money. So you can put all types of things like that. You can encourage philanthropy, in terms of maybe you have to give a portion that you receive, all different types of ideas. But the point is kind of think of what's important to your family and try to structure that into your estate plan to encourage the behavior that you're trying to encourage.
So if this has been helpful and you would like to receive more of these communications and these informational videos, please hit like and subscribe to the video below. Thank you.